Hello everyone, welcome to Psych, and today I want to talk about narcissistic personality disorder. What it is, how it's defined, how it's diagnosed, and something else that's really important, what it isn't. Let's get into it. So if you've been online or watched TV in the past few years, you've probably heard somebody refer to somebody else as a narcissist. Because these days, it's a throwaway term for when somebody is kind of selfish. But the interesting thing is that is really not what narcissism is. Narcissism is not about someone who is selfish, but selfishness can be a part of narcissism. So narcissism is a personality disorder that revolves around somebody having self-grandiose, which essentially means that they believe that they are superior to others around them and that they are more important than the rest of the world. The word narcissist actually comes from the Greek story of Narcissus, which is a story about a man who falls in love with a reflection of himself to a point where when he realizes that the reflection cannot love him back, he kills himself, or he turns into the flower Narcissus, which is a daffodil, depending on which version of the story you've read. And in my opinion, this is a great reflection of what narcissism truly is. For a real narcissist is someone who has fallen in love with their own image, who's fallen in love with themselves, essentially. They're someone who thinks of themselves as perfect in every way, or in most ways at the very least. They're someone who's not going to be able to take criticism from others, and they're going to see others as less than themselves, because they view themselves as almost this ultimate being, this superior person compared to the rest of the world. In terms of clinical diagnosis, narcissistic personality disorder is defined by having 5 of the following 9 personality traits in a long-lasting pattern, which essentially means that if you have these patterns for a short period of time in your life, that doesn't essentially make you a narcissist. You have to have these patterns for extended periods of time. A grandiose sense of self-importance, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. A belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by, or should associate with, other special or high-status people or institutions. A need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally exploitive behavior, a lack of empathy, envy of others or a belief that others are envious of him or her, a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors and attitudes. The statistics involving narcissistic personality disorder are interesting because we suspect that around 1% of the population truly has narcissistic personality disorder. But individuals with narcissistic personality disorder traits seem to be on the rise within the last couple of decades. The interesting thing about this, though, is that this is somewhat related to gender, and it's also extremely related to age. So about 75% of the people diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder are men. And another interesting thing is that narcissistic personality disorder is primarily found in people from the ages of 10 to 30, which is to say that younger people are more likely to have highly narcissistic traits compared to people in their older years in life. Now, what's interesting about this specific statistic is that this is what separates somebody who has narcissistic traits from somebody who is truly a narcissist. Because in theory, a personality disorder is something that never is really fixed in the personality because it's something almost genetic or biological. You never really get over a personality disorder. But somebody who has highly narcissistic traits but doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder could potentially grow away from these traits as they age and mature in life, which is something that you're not likely to see when you're dealing with somebody who is a true narcissist. Somebody who is narcissistic in their very nature as a personality disorder is going to have an exceptionally hard time dealing with those narcissistic personality traits. Now, this doesn't mean that people with narcissistic personality disorder have no hope of overcoming their mental disorder and becoming a more normal-minded person. What it does mean, though, is that people who are truly narcissistic are going to have a much harder time doing this compared to somebody who just has a few of the traits of narcissistic personality disorder. People with the real disorder are going to have to go through extensive therapy and extreme introspection if they want to overcome this disorder, and this is much harder for them and much rarer than somebody who just has a few of the traits of the disorder. In theory, there are 2 types of narcissists. There's the one type that shows themselves off as self-superior because they have a somewhat fragile sense of ego, and they're kind of overcompensating for this by over-presenting themselves. On the other hand, though, we have the type of narcissist who truly believes that they are superior to almost everybody else in almost every single way. And this type of narcissist is interesting because their ego is truly diamond hard. It's going to be hard to critique them because they're not even going to care enough about the opinions of others to take a compliment or critique. They believe that their opinion about themselves is almost the only one that matters. It's also just as important to recognize what narcissism isn't compared to what it is. So, as I mentioned earlier, just because somebody is selfish doesn't mean they're necessarily narcissistic. Selfishness is a negative personality trait, but it is one that is not considered clinical. It is one that is a part of certain clinical diagnostics, but it is not something that in and of itself is a personality disorder. Alongside that, just because you've had a disagreement with somebody and you felt that they were unable to see your point of view or be empathetic, doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. There's been times in everybody's life where they've gotten into an argument with somebody and they were unable to come to that middle ground and unable to kind of make that bridge between the two arguments being argued. Neither person in either of these situations is necessarily a narcissist. The narcissist is somebody who has self-entitlement, self-importance. They're unwilling to ever see other people's opinions because they believe that their opinion is the only one that matters. And it's these constant reoccurring behaviors that truly make up what a narcissist is. Alright everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this video on narcissistic personality disorder. I know that this channel is usually focused on personality type, but as somebody who wants to be a student of clinical psychology, this stuff is really interesting to me too. I'd like to work with psychopathology one day, so I'd like to talk more about it on this channel as well. If you enjoyed this video and you'd maybe like to see videos focused on other personality disorders as well, please let me know down in the comment section below. I would like to remind everybody that I do have personality typing sessions available at my website, asarapsych.com, if you'd like to work with me to find out what your personality type is and what that means for you. This has been Asara at Asara Psych. Have a good one.